everyone. Welcome back to HLS TV. I'm Molly Moran here with Ryan Ritter, and we will be discussing this week's North Carolina game and the upcoming Florida State game. So, North Carolina game, a little bit more exciting and close than some might have expected. Ryan, what are some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, as much as everybody's saying it was a trap game, I felt good that we would be. I don't know why I felt like this, but I'm like, oh, it's a trap game. We know it. We're going to be fine. But lo and behold, it ended up being a trap game, and we just can't get off to a good start. And for the first drive, when Golson coughs up a fumble, and it was like from that point on, you give North Carolina a little bit too much momentum, and then it just seemed like we were just in it to survive after that. It felt like Pitt, but in a different way because it was more of an offensive shootout.
hmm Yeah, I agree. That was that turnover definitely kind of gave North Carolina momentum and they ran with it. But I think the key to that game was the fact that Notre Dame had that 14-0 streak, like where they scored 14 points, because then after that, both teams scored 29 points. So that 14 unanswered points was huge.
Yeah, and even when they took the lead, back when, and it was at the end of the half,
hmm
when North Carolina, and I almost forgot about this. I had to rewatch the game. I was around doing too much official club game watch duties, so I wanted to sit down and
Yeah.
focus on it. So when I did that, I saw at the end of the half, on right before North Carolina scored,
hmm
I'd almost forgotten about that. Notre Dame basically had a goal line stand, and then there was a
hmm
very questionable pass interference call. But even after that, they got him to third and goal. And even
hmm
then, it looked like Rochelle had the play stopped. He just happened to tackle him in such a manner that he could roll over him into the end zone. Max
hmm
Redfield even comes diving in to try to stop it, and he just happens to get rolled away from him. So, and there was also early in the game, Sheldon Day dropped an interception.
Yep.
So there was
Yeah.
really, it's weird because you look at all the points that obviously we gave them. I think it was 21 total that we
hmm
gave them, if I remember the count right. But even then, it's like there was other points where we probably could have, slammed the brakes on any kind of momentum that they had, even before we did the 14 points in a row, and even going into the
Yeah.
half. Hey, you got to do what you got to do, and there's a lot of teams in college football right now that are kicking themselves for losses, and their undefeated records going away. It's not easy to do this.
Right.
As for personally though, I don't know how you feel. I feel that, and we kind of talked about this at the Syracuse game. Like, how should you feel
hmm
about how we won, considering how sloppy it is? And I don't think it's a problem to look critically at the team, especially when you consider, okay, we can't do this against Florida State because now
Right.
they're next week. So how do you feel? Are you concerned, or what's kind of your temperature on the way that game went overall? Because I'm kind of shaky and confident in some ways, but I'm really not sure. What about you?
I agree. I think the whole thing's a balance. Like for one, just the performance of both teams, I think, is a balance because I think going into it, we thought. I mean, I thought that North Carolina wasn't going to be a problem. So then I'm thinking, well, was this an underestimation of North Carolina, or because I mean, for one, I was really impressed with their quarterback. So I'm kind of like, well, I don't know. It's kind of a balance there. Notre Dame did look bad. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say well, North Carolina was great because they're not. We should not have played that horribly against them. But you kind of have to balance those two thoughts. And then again, the fact that we did win, but it was sloppy. So I mean, immediately after the game, I'm just like, I don't even care. We won. That's great. But you do have to kind of think, looking ahead to Florida State, you cannot do that. North Carolina can't kind of have that hurry up offense that really stymied Notre Dame. That kind of worries me. And yeah, I don't know. So definitely happy because I'd rather play sloppy and win than play sloppy and lose. But I do definitely think you kind of have to temper, how you feel about it a little bit. So overall, I'm happy because I'd rather be undefeated, but I'm definitely a little concerned. A lot
Yeah,
concerned, maybe.
yeah, especially since now it's almost a trend, and
It is.
probably.
I mean, Kelly said that, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's terrifying. He's like, well, this is kind of who we're turning into. I'm like, well, let's change that now.
Yeah, and I mean, just think about all of the ways we've started. Turnovers aside, we got into a very slow start against Rice, got into
hmm
a very slow start against Michigan. Purdue, we
Yeah.
scored on the first drive, but after
hmm
that
But
drive,
then kind of sputtered a little
Yeah,
bit.
we sputtered for the rest of the half. So, and Syracuse, again, sputtering. So it's just constant. And Kelly said it is, I need to get Golson comfortable and, on a roll. And I
Hmm.
guess we're kind of seeing why. He sees that, Golson, I guess, needs to get his feet under him, needs to knock the rust off just about every single week.
Hmm.
And I'm worried about what could happen against, a team like Florida State because teams, and North Carolina was really the first team I think that made Notre Dame pay on the scoreboard as far as
Hmm.
turnovers went. It just didn't matter in the end because our offense was so much better than their defense, which we all
Right.
expected going in. I even said their unit's so bad, 50 points to be scored. Lo and behold, they scored 50, and they
Hmm.
needed the 50.
They did need the 50.
Yeah, but uh, like I said, though, we handed so many points over, and there was definitely points where you see all these different ways, and usually we're taking looks at that and saying, well, this is all the reasons why we lost. And now I think we look at it saying, this is all the reasons why we could lose against tougher opponents.
Hmm. No, I
And
totally agree.
yeah, but the good part is, this team I think really finds, and Kelly said it too. They are confident that they'll find a way to win. As worried as I was, I did to kind of have that confidence that
Hmm.
some way, somehow, this team was going to pull it out because we can't lose to North Carolina. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And I think the team almost had almost the same feeling because that's exactly how they play. They're like, this, we're not going to let this happen.
Yeah, I do. I agree. I mean, I get like kind of afraid to say certain things out loud, but I do think there's something special about this team. I'm not saying it's special, like national championship special or anything like that. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I mean, I definitely think that they just play with like a togetherness, and yeah, I agreed. For as worried as I was, just reading Twitter, I knew when I rewatched it that they won, but it's like a scary movie. You still are kind of wondering what's going to happen, even though you know. So it's kind of like, oh my gosh, they're going to win? Knew they were, but I agree. For some reason, even when I was reading Twitter, I was like, you know what, we're going to pull this out because they have to. And when I was watching, even though it was close, I do think that they still were playing with a confidence, even when they were, making mistakes. I think they were able to come out, and they didn't look sluggish or anything. I still think they came out every drive kind of ready to go. So, I'll take it.
Yeah, and I know the offensive line, and there's reasons why they got a lot of criticism. They definitely had
Hmm.
some lapses.
Yeah.
More so, I feel, in the pass protection game, which has usually been the better end of it.
Hmm.
They definitely had a couple, there's some outright misassignments. They had a couple lapses on pre-snap penalties. But overall, when I rewatched the game, because in my mind I was thinking, man, our line, I'm just really concerned. But I watched, and
Hmm.
I know part of it has to do with North Carolina's rushing defense is really terrible, but they were getting some good pushes, and it's a large reason why. I mean, we had 219 total rushing yards. You don't do that by accident. Now,
Right.
do I think we're going to be able to do that against Florida State? No, I don't think. No, I mean we're talking apples and oranges as far as defensive units, but
Hmm.
every week I think they're going to get better. But there are some concerns there, and I know Kelly said today that they graded out much better, and I think I see why he said that.
Hmm.
I think maybe he's deflecting a little bit of the criticism because I definitely think there's multiple points where you could say, we really shot ourselves in the foot here and here and here and here.
Yeah. I know. I'm just like, I'm trying to like stay happy here. No, we won. So,
Yeah, I'm not trying to get down, but I mean, I
no,
guess
it's
it's
true.
like, it, go,
Again, you have to look at both sides. We do have Florida State coming up, but before we move on to previewing Florida State, let's talk about maybe some MVPs for the North Carolina game, and then we'll kind of segue into how we feel about this upcoming game.
yeah, because Florida State's this big. I mean, it's
I
as soon as
know.
the
I
game
think
was over,
that's
we're
like on
like,
everybody's mind.
that's why it was a trap game because everybody's thinking about Florida State to begin.
Exactly. Yeah, that has been the game circled on the schedule for everyone even before the season started. That's a huge
Yeah,
one. So,
exactly. All right, but MVPs, we'll focus on this for a little bit longer.
yeah, we'll move
Um, Now, I think any other game, Will Fuller would have had the MVP locked up.
on.
Ridiculous. He had 133 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, only 20 yards a catch. But the
Hmm.
game Terry and Folson had was
Yeah.
just absurd. He had 3 total touchdowns, 2 rushing, 1 passing, had 71 receiving yards, 98 rushing yards. So we almost had a 100-yard rusher, but it didn't even matter when he was getting so many yards. You know, you have, let's see if I can do the math in my head real quick. Looking at the box score, so that's 169 yards if I'm doing my math right, according to the box score. That's absurd. It was an absolute career day for him. We wanted to make sure that, you know, against this Russian defense, somebody should stand out, and he definitely did, without a doubt. That's Folston for offense. That's definitely my MVP.
Agreed. I can't. I mean, there's no one. There's no other choice. He had such an amazing game, and I was really kind of excited. You know, we have a lot of weapons, and I think we've been talking every week how just the different guys been stepping up, and I think that's really good to see. I don't think we have just one guy, so it's kind of cool to see. You know, the fact that Will Fuller had the game that he had, and Terry Folston still was the MVP is saying something. Like, that's amazing. He did. He had a banner day, and I was really excited to see that. So.
Yeah, and in other good news, I mean, with rushing, I saw some good things from Greg Bryan as well. He seemed to have.
Yeah, it's true.
He didn't really light up the stat sheet. He only had 13 yards, but on the carries he did get, he only had 4. You could see that, you know, he was making better decisions, I felt.
Yeah.
But when Folston has a hot hand, and before the season I ranked him as the top player for the Irish. This game's a reason why, because he has that, you know, instinct in his game that you just can't rate or you just can't replicate, and it's been frustrating to like watch him run into blockers and things like that. And you know, you have a game like this, you're like, that's what I was expecting from him.
Yes.
This is the kind of game I was expecting from Folston. So yeah, I mean, incredible to, like I said, I was convinced it was going to be Fuller, but just absolutely incredible game. But defense, who do you got for defense though? This might be a tougher one for this game.
It was kind of tough. I was really impressed with Isaac Rochelle for one. He stepped up a lot. Joe Schmidt had some good plays. I don't know. It's kind of tough, but I'm always impressed with Joe Schmidt. I'm kind of like the president of his fan club we've already mentioned. But yeah, I don't know. I was impressed with them.
Forced a fumble though, and that
he did.
And that was needed too to make sure we keep the momentum going, especially as much as we were coughing the ball up. Getting one on our end was very, very nice as well. But yeah, I would. I think it's between Rochelle, Day, and Riggs for me. And I know Riggs had a little bit of a rougher game, but really it's because of the. I mean, Riggs saved a touchdown with an absolutely jarring hit. So, you know, that sticks out in my mind. Day almost having an interception, having the presence of mind to read. I mean, that screenplay was a misdirection, was going one way, but in actuality, the pass was going to the opposite direction. He read that perfectly and almost had interception. Rochelle was just in the backfield all day long, so I almost tip my hat to him in general, just because he was, I think, the most disruptive presence on the defense.
Agreed.
And I know the defense was in a tough position. It wasn't really a banner day for them, but and you can see Van Gorder, I think, frustrated pretty visibly on the sidelines, and some of his pack blitzes weren't quite working. Especially on the last one where he kind of he did the same thing he did against Stanford, brought a safety in. Safety got there a step too late, and it ended up being a touchdown. And you could just see him like,
yeah,
I thought that would work.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I got to give love to the big guys. I mean, that's where it all starts for me. So yeah, I got to give it to the big guys.
Very true. I know, and they don't get enough credit. Get enough credit sometimes. Oh, I just wanted to rewind rather. I'd say a secondary MVP for me on offense would have been Ben Koyak as well, because toward the end of the game, his 2-point conversion and then him on that onside kick, I think, was really clutch toward the end there. So. Yeah,
and you can't discount that. USC almost lost because they couldn't recover an onside kick last night. So, yeah, you really can't. Koyak it's weird. It's like he's silent. You wonder where he is, and then
he strikes just when you need him.
Past 2 weeks, he's made incredible plays in the fourth quarter that we need.
There he is. Yep. Okay, so now that we've struggled through talking about the North Carolina game, because the whole time we've clearly been thinking about Florida State, we might as well just move on and talk about the big game that everybody's been thinking about the whole season.
Yeah, and thank you, Mississippi State, for screwing up our chance at knocking Florida State off the #1 perch. We appreciate that. Especially since, my sister goes to Auburn, so while we're at the game watch, I'm kind of the other reason, doing club duties, also kind of having split attention of what's going on with Auburn and what's going on with the Notre Dame game. and SCU and Oregon and UCLA, all that's going on at once. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that part sucks, but I mean, it's still a number two, number five matchup. Really big
Yeah.
deal. Game day is going to be there. This is what we were kind of all hoping for. You know, we wanted
Hmm.
once we got past Michigan, once we got past that hump, it's like, okay, maybe if we can, if we can take out Stanford, and then maybe we'll be lucky enough to go into Tallahassee undefeated. And here we are. Both teams are undefeated. And I think the biggest shock for me is in preparation for the show. I wanted to look at, and I know statistical rankings, you can only gain so much from them, but I went just to look at the general rankings. We're actually somewhat comparable to them when you look at just the overall rankings. Total offense and total defense, we're both in the 30s to 40s within 10 ranks of each other. And as far as, I mean, we both played one like opponent, Syracuse. We beat them 31 to 15, of course, and Florida State actually played them last week and beat them 38 to 20. And like us, they had some turnover problems. They coughed up 2 turnovers in that game as well. So I don't know if that makes me feel better. I guess kind of on paper looks like a comparison that we might be comparable teams. Even Sagarin at USA Today, his ratings have us within striking distance of each other. So I think it's a game we could win, but man, if we start going down this road that we've been going down, and like we've mentioned this whole time, that's what gets concerning is can we have our slow start and still survive?
Yeah, it's a big question, big concern. I don't know. I certainly don't know the answer to that. I would think no, but yeah, I know something to think about.
Yeah, and I kind of lean towards that as well, and I think in general, they've played, I would say overall, a little bit of a tougher schedule than we have. I
Hmm.
mean, they played Oklahoma State, who I know is unranked, but I mean, they're a team that can cause trouble. Uh,
Hmm.
they played Clemson. I actually can't remember if they're ranked now. At the time, they were. They were
Hmm.
ranked 22, and Clemson. Of course, that was game Winston was suspended, so that might be an outlier we kind of have to toss out.
Hmm.
NC State was, almost their letdown game where they struggled very early and they ended up coming back. That was also the same week where we made a comparison that Winston had comparable stats to Golson at Syracuse, turnovers
Hmm.
included, which was
Right.
very interesting.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, they play the Citadel, which is a throwaway game. Wake Forest, another kind of throwaway game. So you can see some of those in our schedule too. So I think and it's weird for me to say, yeah, the defending national champions look a lot like us. I think that is me maybe being a little bit with my blue and gold glasses on. What do you think? Am I out of my mind, or how do you feel about this?
I mean, honestly, like I know stats aren't everything and, all that, but honestly, after hearing, the comparison that you were able to present and, comparing their schedule to ours, yeah, I might have the same blue and gold glasses on to an extent, but I definitely think they are a little bit more comparable than I would have thought. So I don't know what that means in terms of going down to Tallahassee this coming Saturday, but yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I was really shocked to see that, and I'm interested in looking because I love the Football Outsiders, the adjusted FEI rankings. Those are one of my
Mhm.
favorites. I haven't seen them updated yet. They could very well be at this time, but I don't believe they are. So I'm interested to take a look at those because I like how those adjust the stats. But I think part of it, Winston being out for a game, I guess
Mhm.
affects that some.
Right.
But in general, though, Florida State, there's multiple things. First, it's our true road game,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
that's a really big deal. And I know ESPN on game day. Some people I saw on Twitter, kind of had problems with ESPN, pointing out our schedule getting weak, because they said like Notre Dame record against, opponents record against Power Five opponents, and it was like 2 and rest losses. And those, if I remember right, I think those 2 wins might have come from Stanford and maybe Purdue. I can't remember. That no, because Stanford. No, they may both been from Stanford now that I think about it. But that was basically the point. Was our schedule is a lot weaker than we all expected it to be.
Hmm.
Um, Michigan finally got off the schneid and beat a Power Five opponent. But yeah, we're mostly playing teams that have losing records against strong competition, save for Stanford. Stanford was the first quality opponent we played, and this is
Mhm.
our second test, and this one's on the road.
Yeah.
And not only is it on the road, it's going to be in front of a Tallahassee crowd that is going to be incredibly hungry to watch us lose. And it's technically an ACC matchup, so
Yeah.
and I know. See, if it was in South Bend, I would be like, man, that crowd would be so ready to get revenge for 1993. And
Mhm.
even though we won that game, but they won the title, so I have no idea how the Tallahassee fans feel about '93. They probably think they deserve the title then because freaking Boston College got us.
Right. Yeah, I'm definitely. I think the fact that it's in Tallahassee is huge because football is really mental. And there is a part of me though, and this is like the crazy part, or like the really idealistic part, like that thinks about Oklahoma when we had to play them in Norman, and everybody had us like, nope, you're gonna lose, and we just like went in there and we just totally owned. And I'm like, can it be like that? And it's gonna be like that. And I'm like, no, don't get ahead of yourself. Don't think that. But there's like a little part of me that wants it to be just like that.
I think it's an apt comparison, though, especially if you take a look at where Vegas has the lines right now. It was very similar. We were double-digit underdogs going into Oklahoma. Not
Mm,
only did we beat them, but we did what I called a double cover. We beat them by as much as they were giving up to us. So I think it was 14, and we beat them by 14. So the what I saw today was I think the line started at like 12 or 13 and is now down to 11, which is weird. So people having confidence that Notre Dame might be able to be better than what the handicappers may initially think,
mhm.
which is weird because a lot of people say, well, why would you mention spreads and stuff? I don't care about gambling. It's not so much a gambling thing. Those people in Vegas make money off of this by handicapping games because they're
Mhm.
really smart about it. So, there's a saying, Vegas always knows. So it's weird when something like Notre Dame, Oklahoma happens, and not only is it an upset, but I mean, it's the complete opposite of what these handicappers thought.
Mhm.
If people think I spend a lot of time, breaking down stats on blog, and you and I spending all this time here talking football, I mean, that's their job, is to figure out
Right.
how many points can I realistically give a team to make this an even matchup. So it's a little terrifying that really smart people think that that's what it's going to be. And if you look, the only other game we were not favored in thus far was Stanford, and really
Mhm.
that game was a coin toss because we were only giving up 1 or 2 points. I forget where it ended up, but that's about where it was heading. So it was basically a toss up,
Mhm.
that one. So this is the first time experts, and that's what if ESPN ever says it'll be closer than the experts think, or they mention the experts, are talking about the betting line.
Right.
So it's a very veiled way of them, saying, hey, this is where I have my money on that I really don't have it on. But yeah, that so when you see that kind of expert pick on there, that does lead to some concern. But I haven't gotten to watch a whole lot of Florida State. What I have
Yeah.
watched, um, I've leaned between not as impressive to impressive. I think in particular the way they played against North Carolina State was
Mhm.
impressive because that really had all the makings. Similar to us playing North Carolina in a way to where they handed them points upon points upon points, and they
Mhm.
still won the game. So, God, I'm just ready for this one because I think
Yeah.
this is one to where part of me wants to be rational and think that this is very much a game that we could and probably will lose, but at the same time, I look at this and I'm like, they're a beatable team. I think they've showed more cracks than they did last year, personally. What
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah, from the little that I saw, there were definitely times where I was like, this is the defending national championship team. Like, that's interesting. So, I definitely think, of course, the player that everyone thinks of when they think of Florida State is Jameis Winston.
mhm.
So he's going to be a key to the game. And we've mentioned in other shows that Notre Dame has been pretty good at kind of singling out key players and shutting them down as far as, like Michigan Funchess and things like that. So I don't know. What are you thinking as far as James Winston is concerned?
It's easier to shut down a skill position player than it is a quarterback because a
Mm-hmm.
quarterback will use the weapons around him. So this
Sure.
is and really this is the first quarterback, and I know we were all concerned about Devin Gardner, but I really, if you look at how Gardner, I mean, his mobility was almost a non-factor in that game. When he
Yeah.
ran, he almost seemed to cause more troubles. It was like Everett now. He didn't protect the ball very well.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so it's hard. I think the bigger question is now, the off the field, allegations, the sexual assault
Hmm.
allegations and rape allegations are catching up to him again. He is going to have sometime this week a hearing, excuse me, in front of the Florida State, their version of the Honor Code Board. So he's facing, I believe ESPN said it was 4 or 5 violations against student code of conduct. Now they're bringing in people from the outside. They're going to have an initial hearing. There's no real timeline that I've heard established to this point, so I don't
Hmm.
think that Winston will be out for the Irish. But you almost wonder if there's a certain point to where all this stuff eventually catches up with Florida State. Are they really as tone deaf to this as we all think they are, or
Hmm.
is this the game where it finally catches up to them to where it all becomes too much, and is that even going to play into it? Because that's the other factor with Winston. It's I know some people, if there's a Florida State fan watching this, like, you're focusing too much on that, but it's a lot like Notre Dame with the Academic Five, and as much as
Hmm.
people say don't think about it, well, Will Fuller did the Devarius Daniels favorite touchdown
Hmm.
celebration with the Hunger
Yep.
Games District 12 salute. So this
Hmm.
is definitely it's on the mind of these kids as much as they say, yeah, we just put it aside, and they say all the right things. No, this isn't a trap game. No, we're not thinking about it. No, all this doesn't matter. It's definitely there.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a little different for Florida State too because right now they have their quarterback. I mean, they didn't for a half of the Clemson game or a quarter or whatever. But
Actually, the full game for that one. It was
the
originally the
full game.
half,
I
and
couldn't
it was the
remember.
full game.
Was
Yeah.
it? And then they changed it. Okay. But for Notre Dame's five, they haven't played this whole season, so I think we've kind of gotten used to the fact like, well, they might not be coming back. Winston, on the other hand, is almost like a ticking time bomb, and he could at any time kind of be caught and be taken from the team, and that's a little. I would think that would weigh on their minds a little bit more differently than the Notre Dame players in the sense that they've been without them, so they've kind of been adjusting the whole season
Right. Yeah, I suppose that makes sense.
in a way.
Yeah, Winston's, and even I remember when I did the radio thing over the first time on KVCE.
Hmm.
I was asked about this, and it's really hard to, kind of explain, ask about the mindset that Winston has, because you would think after, getting into trouble, you'd try to keep your nose clean, and looking at our case, with the Academic Five, it was like, really, Devers, like, how are you involved in, something academic again, that you had,
Hmm.
it wasn't, dishonesty at that point, but it was struggling with it, and, you would think that at some point, you would learn and kind of clean up and move forward. But obviously, we still don't know what the decision is on Tavares. So all we know is it doesn't look good right now at this point.
Yeah.
But and Winston, it almost seems a real lack of self-awareness with some of the things that he's getting involved in. The suspension he had against the Clemson game, it was for something so stupid. Not necessarily that he shouldn't have been suspended for it, but it's like, dude, you got to know everybody's listening to you. This
Yeah.
is going to end up somewhere. And, some people say, well, Twitter wasn't around, it wouldn't happen. Well, maybe not, but if, one of those kids decides to call the student paper or something like that, or somebody
Hmm.
decides to run a report, or they fish it to Deadspin, Deadspin was still around before Twitter, even,
Right.
so things like that have a way of coming out just because the spotlight's so big. So
Yeah.
that as far as a ticking time bomb, I wonder. Very long-winded to say is like, I wonder if some players are questioning. It's like, dude, you're supposed to be our leader. Don't you get that you really need to kind of stay below the radar just a little bit, buddy?
Yeah. Exactly.
Just we're gonna let everything blow over, but stop doing some stupid stuff for a little while and just play football and then get to the NFL.
Yeah. Seems easy enough, but I guess when you're dealing with college kids, anything can happen.
Yeah, and I was. That's not to say I never did anything stupid in college. I did stupid things. I've been in trouble in college before. It wasn't major
Right.
by any means. It was a hard alcohol fine, so nothing too severe. But you know,
Confessions after dark.
yeah. But with because the allegations that he's dealing with now are extremely serious, and
Yeah,
then
they
he
are.
has a lot of related stupid crap that almost makes you wonder, you know, is he ever going to quite figure out what's going on? Is he slightly maybe out of control? Does he think he's bigger than the program? It
Yeah.
was some of the same things they worried about with Johnny Manziel in the same way. Is he just convinced that he's all in it for himself and isn't really worried about the team as a whole? I think that's got to be the bigger concern when you think about the off the field stuff, or at least that's where I am personally. It's probably overreaction. It's probably and I can admit it's probably painting with a broad brush because I know academically the kid's really smart. He's an extremely talented athlete,
Mhm.
but you just you just wonder where the common sense is kind of lying for
Right. No,
a
I mean, I
Heisman
think
winner.
right. I think even if you are painting with a broad brush, I think it's coming from somewhere that is justified and makes sense. Because I mean, some of the arguments that people do, like the Twitter argument. I mean, well, Twitter is around, so it's like I don't care if it was or wasn't. It is, and you need to understand that you are a huge, huge presence, like not just at Florida State, but just nationally. And I know that you don't ask to be put on that pedestal. No one does, but you are, and you just need to you just have to take that platform and do something with it. I mean, it's just how it is. It's unfortunate, but just like the quarterback at Notre Dame will always be a huge, huge
Right.
presence, not just in sports. It's just how it's going to be.
Yeah, and he embraces the nickname Famous Jameis. So I mean, he's aware of it in some cases, but then in
Right.
others it appears he's not. And then the I think the biggest one where I just really shook my head and just started laughing was when he decided, while suspended, I'm going to suit up in full pads and go warm up for the Clemson game. That was
Right.
the most
Yeah,
absurd one. It's just like, why are you doing this? It's
I
like,
know.
what part of
I know
that
that
makes
definitely
sense?
definitely made me scratch my head and kind of go, that was just dumb. Like,
Yeah, and Jimbo is just looking at him like, are you freaking kidding me, dude? And he just has this defeated look like, I cannot believe I'm having to tell you to go in the locker room and change, but here I am, go in the locker room and change.
hmm. Yep. That's who we're facing on Saturday.
Yeah, we're
Good
all over
time.
the map again, but
No,
I
I know.
I can't wait. Well, no, it's one of those things. There's a lot of
But it is
excitement.
it's going to be a factor in the game because
Yeah,
that's definitely that's going to be on people's minds, and it's definitely going to be a story that they will talk about. I'm sure during game day and during the game and things like that. It's going to come up.
yeah, exactly. And just like Notre Dame, and I'm sure. Well, I don't know say if I'm sure we'll get more news, but we'll probably. I would say there's a decent chance we're going to get more news because I did see some rumors around that, now that we got one player, that kind of went quote unquote public with it, we may have
Hmm.
a couple others that choose to do so. The way this whole thing's gone, I don't know. It's a 50-50 coin toss. So, but
Hmm.
again, that's definitely going to be something that is brought up for sure because, and ESPN, they always do those kind of stories. It's the off the field stuff.
Yep.
It matters, and as much as people don't want to say it matters, you can't turn on a Georgia game now without hearing about Todd Gurley and getting in trouble for the autograph. So it just comes with the territory. So that's going to be mentioned. So it'll be Notre Dame, Florida, comparable in storylines, and then
Anyways,
there's and then they'll say, well, also comparable and off the field stuff, whether or not it's true, because I think there's a load different than what Jameis Winston's going through right now than
yes, agreed.
from,
But anything to draw in viewers and make news, right? So,
right.
especially in prime time.
Yeah, but I guess sort of to close this up.
Yeah.
So what, as of right now, if I told you not necessarily predict a score because we'll do that later on in the week at
Right.
MLS, but if you were to feel like, I don't know, maybe a percentage of chance that Notre Dame would win this, where do you feel right now?
Where do I feel right now? Goodness. Well, I just rewatched the North Carolina game, so that might have it's a little bit more fresh on my mind than some people. So maybe that's going to sway me a little bit toward the more frightened side. But gosh, I might be conservative and say like 65% sure that we're going to win. I'm just kind of a little, I'm so 50-50. There's a part that wants to be like 95% sure, but I don't know.
Well, we all want to be like that. You
I
know?
know. I'm thinking like I honestly I think the key for me is going to be Golson. Like we were saying, it does seem like he needs to kind of shake the rust off every game. They're just going to have to come out and they really, really on their first drive just have to be confident. They have to make something happen right off the bat. And Golson's not going to be able to second guess, and he's not going to be able to look around the field and have happy feet and make dumb throws. To be
Right.
honest.
Well,
So
don't feel so bad about your negativity because
what's your 45?
actually, yes, that's the exact number I was thinking
45.
of.
Look at that.
And it's because of, I just don't see us getting off to a strong start on the road because
Right.
Kelly said all of our players have been through it before. Yes, that's true, but our starting quarterback is showing some signs of not being 100% in stride yet. Because remember, Golson still has a year off. He's still trying to ramp back
Right.
up, and you can still see he's doing some growing pains that probably would have happened last year, but it's
Right.
happening this year. And he's going to go into a very hostile environment, and he hasn't been in a hostile environment like that since I don't know. I'm trying to think of the away games in 2012. Probably maybe USC might have been the most hostile, I would say, with that schedule because the BCS game was mostly Notre Dame fans in that stadium, even though you couldn't hear us by the end of it. Um, so that concerns me, and just because he's gotten to slow starts at home on all the one road game we've had to this point was Syracuse, and that was basically a home game with that crowd. Another
Right.
slow start. I'm worried about his interceptions that he has made, in particular the ones that he should have had two this week. He made
Mhm.
two really, really poor reads to where if it was Tommy Rees back there making that throw, everybody would be all over, Tommy
Mhm.
for making the throw. So uh, that's concerning that he's making some of those mistakes. And like I said, they tend to happen early. It tends to be when he's forcing things because he knows he has a big arm. And the one where North Carolina dropped the interception, I watched the replay a few different times, and the reason the guy dropped is because he practically threw it past him. It was so fast. But
Mhm.
that's a reliance you can't count on when you get against better defenses. So
Right.
that plus the fact that I know they mentioned on NBC they're working on him tucking the ball and protecting it better, but that's one of those things to where I about have to believe, see a full game of him not cough up the football for me to believe it. I'll forgive that first fumble because you're trying to hop around the pocket.
Mhm.
Probably should have felt the pocket a little bit better. You can definitely say that it's about, but when he's out in the open field and he knows he's going to get hit, he's either got to get down and slide so you don't even have to worry about being hit, or
Right.
he needs to do what he did a couple weeks ago and just bear hug the ball and make
Yes.
sure it's not going anywhere because
Right.
they've killed us. Those will absolutely kill us at Tallahassee. So and really, and if people think I'm being too negative, I do want to say this. I think this team is much better than I think all of us thought it was going to be, and that's a very
Mhm.
good thing. I think we're going to be in playoff talk, especially if we uh, beat Florida State. I'm not
Mhm.
totally convinced this is a national championship team yet. And
Yeah.
I would love to be proven wrong, obviously, because
Right.
game's going to be in my backyard. I want to see us win a national title every year. But I think you can still see that there's some growing pains. Our offensive line still trying to figure it out. Our quarterback,
Mhm.
I think we're done with Heisman talk for now. I think that's
Yeah.
a certainty.
Yeah.
But we have a very special team. This team's going to be something incredible in 2015, and
Mhm.
I don't want to say this. We should look ahead to next year, but I do think there's going to come a time where we're going to lose a game, and I would not be surprised if it's at Tallahassee. I think
Yeah.
the main thing I'm saying. So
Yeah. And I don't think that's negative. I think that's pretty realistic. So.
yeah, and and if you told me before the season, would you take 10-2? Would you take 11-1? I'd be like, yeah, of course, that'd be great, especially with
Definitely.
the schedule we had. Now, obviously, the schedule is not as hard as we thought it was, and right
Right.
now, I mean, we've got through. There's three big tests on our schedule. Actually, correct, four: Stanford, Florida State, Arizona State, and USC.
Mhm.
USC might be a shaky fourth. That's why I had to correct myself, but they're still dangerous. It's a rivalry
Mhm.
game. So we've passed one of those tests, so we
Yeah.
got three more left. If we can get, two out of those three, I think I'd be thrilled, for the
Agreed.
rest of the
Yeah,
season.
definitely.
As long as one of those losses doesn't come from, an unranked team that we should beat pretty easily, I'm gonna
Yeah,
be cool with it. So, um, I want to beat Florida State. I think we definitely can. I just think there's a better likelihood that we
that we
won't.
may not. Yeah.
But all day Saturday, I'll be saying, "Yeah, we're gonna kick their ass." So
Exactly. For some reason, when it comes Saturday, it's a whole different. We're all singing a different tune.
alcohol does that. I think that
It
might be
does.
part of it.
Right, yeah. Everybody take a drink or two before that game. More because it's a night game, so you have plenty of time to get really excited for it.
Plenty of
But
time to get excited, nervous, drunk, everything.
exactly, it's perfect. We see there's definitely upsides to 8 o'clock games.
Right.
So before we sign off, I wanted to throw it to you because you kind of posted on HLS about a special cause that's kind of close to you and your wife, some friends of yours, Save and Avon. Would you like to kind of talk to our viewers about that?
Yes, definitely. And basically, what this is if you visited HLS, you will see on our sidebar, you will see a picture of a child, and if you click on that, it'll go to a post that explains this as well. But my wife and I, this is actually her college roommate, and of course, once you get married, you inherit the friends as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
This couple's amazing. They stayed at our house. They were at our wedding. Love them to death. They had their child when he was 14 months old. That he got diagnosed with leukemia, and like I said, they're my age. They're around the 30 age where we're still trying to get financially set, and I couldn't even imagine trying to pay bills that involve us trying to save our child from leukemia. And
Hmm.
it's not just a temporary thing. This is a fight that's going to last 3 years of chemotherapy, of surgeries. And I know if it happened to my wife and I, and we started a family, which we want to do, and that happened to us, I know we would not be prepared for it. So this is definitely hit close to home. Not just the fact our situations are similar because we're such good friends. So I've reached out to HLS. ND Nation has also been really, really supportive of reaching out, so I definitely want to thank them as well. And there's already been a lot of progress on there. When we first put it on HLS, they were sitting around 1,500. They're just below 6,000 right now, and their goal is 15,000.
Well, that's
So
awesome. Yeah.
yeah, so we're number one, if you've donated, thank you so, so very much. You're making a gigantic impact, and these are people to where their only exposure to Notre Dame previously was me. So when I talk about, because they've asked me about Notre Dame and what I liked about it, why I went, I always said it's the people around there, and it's not just the students, it's the Subway alumni, it's
Mhm.
the fans, it's this thing that can't be explained. There's this general Notre Dame family love that cannot be explained or topped or anything along those lines. It's all the wonderful, beautiful quotes that go on the shirt every year. I just just about, but they're really seeing the impact for the first time, so they're blown away. So I thank everybody for that. But definitely, if you haven't yet, just realize every single dollar helps. Even if it's just a couple bucks, if 1,000 people donate $1,
Exactly.
that
Huge help.
adds up in a hurry. So
Yeah.
we're going to keep running this, and we'll keep mentioning it, but I will make sure to have a link in this video that you can click on to go directly to their GoFundMe page. And if you want more information, check out herlittlesons.com. You can use our contact us page if you'd like to ask me about any other information about them. If you want to vet it and check that it's real, I can soothe your mind on that. And before we sign off, I also want to thank the Notre Dame Club of Dallas. I mentioned earlier that I didn't get to watch the game fully, my full attention, because I was doing official club duties. I was hosting the game watch, and when we do that, we usually have a charity that we donate to, and I said, I know this is a little more personal than what we usually do, but it would be great if we could do the Save and Avon thing for the raffle that we always raise money for.
Mhm.
And they actually said they would do it, and we raised $350 in a game watch. So
That's awesome.
absolutely unbelievable. I want to thank everybody again for the Notre Dame Club of Dallas, everybody that showed up to the game watch and donated. That was awesome. blew my expectations away because I had no idea how people would react to that. So the Notre Dame family always continues to surprise me as well. So that's awesome.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing. I hope that everyone continues to step up and support a great cause and just show what Notre Dame is all about. And so, on that note, let's help save Avon and let's beat Florida State.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good. Till next week.
Go Irish.
Since we are alone.